This is Zach with Rocky Mountain Machinery. I'm standing here next to one of our L4560 Kubota tractors. This video is focusing mainly on the L4455 subframe for this snowblower. This happens to be an L3560 tractor with an L4469 snowblower. This is going to apply to any of the larger snowblowers, anything that uses this subframe. So L3560 all the way up to L6060. And snowblowers, including the L4469 to the commercial snowblowers, front mounted. This video is more specifically on the subframe itself and how it connects to the tractor and disconnects. This is a manual hitch subframe. There are some videos on YouTube about this, a couple of them. Most of the videos on YouTube are about auto hitches. So this is what I want to cover. I'm not going to focus on the connection or the interface between the front mount snowblower and the hitch itself. In our particular area, we're in Colorado in the mountains. Most of our customers are dealing with deep snow, so they're not interested in running just a snow blade on the front of it, and they're on dirt roads, so they're not running a broom on the front of it. So in the vast majority of our cases, we'll see these snowblowers mounted to a tractor. In the spring, they'll take the whole assembly off, blower and subframe, and park it, and it'll live there until winter comes around again, and then they'll put it back on. So this video is going to go over how to disassemble the whole entire subframe and snowblower assembly from the tractor and to reconnect it. So we're going to go over that on in our showroom here today. Hopefully it's helpful, and we'll go from there. Before we take this blower off, we're going to want to make sure that we've got enough room behind the tractor that we can back all the way off of that frame and put the tractor wherever we want it. So if we're parking this for the season, make sure you've got good room behind your tractor to get away from it. Step one is always going to be to disconnect the PTO shaft first. This can cause pretty significant damage to the tractor if this is left on by mistake. So I like to just get it off the list very first. So we've got this shaft, and it is coming from the snowblower at the front, and it's coming through the subframe to the back. You can see this is where the mid PTO is for the tractor. So we're going to slide this collar back, and then we're going to wiggle this shaft off of the supply shaft. So this will lay right in the frame of the blower. You can just leave it there. You just want to make sure it's disconnected. So that's going to be step number one always when disassembling the snowblower from the tractor. I'm going to open this door on the tractor, and we're going to fire it up. What we're going to do is we're going to push down on this snowblower so that it more or less lifts the front tires off the ground. We don't necessarily need to lift them off the ground. We want to take all of the weight of the snowblower off of the tractor. So we're going to fire the tractor up first thing. We're going to use our loader control valve here. When I push it forward, the blower is going to go down. So we're going to go down, and you can see we're lifting the weight of the tractor off of the ground. And we do that by pushing this forward. So I'm going to check, first thing, that these pins are loose. We have two main pins at the front of the snowblower, one on each side, and we have two pins in the middle of the blower right there. We'll shut the tractor off so that you can hear more clearly. So now that we've got the weight off, you can see this is free spinning. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to undo all of these spring clips, and we're going to remove these main pins from the snowblower. So I take these out. Sometimes you can store them in the front. For now, we're just going to set them on the ground right here. At the same time as we do that, we're going to remove these pins that are just under the front edge of the cab. So you can see them right there. We're going to slide this out and remove this pin right here. For now, we're just going to take it, set it right here. We're going to do the same thing on both sides. This one's got a little bit of pressure on it. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got that pin out, I'm going to slowly let the weight back onto the tractor. I'm just going to, with the engine turned off, I'm going to use this loader valve, and I'm going to let everything sort of relax. Not a lot, but just barely. Sometimes that strain will lock this pin in. So you can see it's loose now. So we're going to pull that out and lay it up here. So now the blower is not really pinned to the tractor. The only place it's attached is on the drawbar at the back. So if you look, you can see pins in the front, pins in the middle, and if we go down below, it connects to the drawbar right there. There's a pocket right here, and the drawbar slides forward into that pocket. And with the tractor off still, I'm going to pull back on the loader joystick like I'm trying to raise the snowblower off the ground. And you'll see as this subframe relaxes down to the floor, only the front end relaxes. The rear end is still connected. So the next thing to disconnect is this drawbar right here. So now that we have the pins removed in the front and the middle, we're going to work on getting the drawbar disconnected from the tail end of this frame. So I'm going to reach down here and I'm going to kind of show you how that connects into this frame. We come to the back of the tractor and we look. This is what's called your drawbar. This is where you'll pull implements on the back or a trailer or anything like that. If you look right here, this is the subframe for the blower. We've got a little bit of glare on it. The drawbar passes through this, which is part of the tractor. And you can see it right here. And then it goes into the back. This is part of the subframe for your snowblower. It goes all the way to the front of the tractor. So it comes right here. You can see that there are two steel pins that pass through this frame, one here and one here. Your drawbar is in between both of those. And when this frame is raised into the working position like it is now, it actually puts a bind on the end of the drawbar. So you can see this drawbar is tight. We can't wiggle it. We can't have any play in it. So what we need to do to get this drawbar disengaged from the back of the frame is we need to lower the whole subframe at the front down to the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the tractor again. And while it's running, I'm going to actually raise the blower off of the ground a little bit. And you can watch this frame settle down to the floor while I do that. Now that we've got the frame lower to the floor, you can see that we're resting on the floor here. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the back of the tractor. Because the angle of that frame has changed and those pins have released their bind on this drawbar, now we can wiggle it around a little bit. So what we're going to do is there's a hairpin on the bottom of that right here. We're going to pull that pin off. I'm going to pull this pin out, set it down here. And then we're going to try sliding this drawbar out. There might be still a little bit of pressure on it, so it might not come. But we'll give it a little wiggle. Looks like we're going to need to take a little more pressure off that. So before I try raising it more, I'm actually going to go backwards a little bit. I'm just going to relax some of this pressure here without starting the tractor. And we'll see if that gives us enough play to pull that drawbar. If not, we'll start the tractor again. Yeah, that's tight. So we're going to start the tractor again. And we're going to lift the blower even more, which is going to put more up pressure on the tail end of that hitch. This is a part of the job where it's nice to have two people if possible, because one person can feel this to see when it loosens up, and the other person can run the control. So where it's just me, I'm going to walk back and forth a little bit. There's still quite a bit of pressure, so I'm just going to play with it for a second. You can see the blower's floating. I'm going to lower it down just a touch. I'm going to go back and check this drawbar again, see if it's loosened up for us. So after playing with the loader control a little bit, we've been able to loosen that frame up so that this will slide right out of the back. So we're just going to pull this whole drawbar out. Just lay it on the ground right here. I'm going to shut the tractor off again. Okay, now we started with step one. We disconnected the PTO shaft. Step two, we disconnected these front pins and the middle pins. Step 3, we lowered the front end of the frame to the ground. Step 4, we removed the drawbar. So the drawbar is out. The only thing connecting this snowblower and subframe assembly to the tractor right now is these hydraulic hoses. So what I'm going to do with the tractor off, we're going to come to the loader control, and I'm going to run it in every direction. What we want is for this frame to relax to the ground so that there's no pressure in any of the hydraulic systems, and so that everything is just resting on the ground. So I'm just going to kind of cycle this around and neutralize all the pressure. Now, the last thing we can do before we can drive the tractor away from this snowblower is disconnect our hydraulic lines. So this tractor is currently set up with these hoses running through all of these. They're kind of a coil retainer for the hoses. This can be a little bit of a pain, especially if the hoses are cold. So hopefully you can get your preparation done before the weather gets too extreme. Pull all of these out. Two of these hoses are used for raising and lowering the hitch of the snowblower. The other two hoses go all the way to the front of the blower, and they're used for rotating the chute, for pointing the direction of your snow. This model is a basic model, so we don't have it set up with a hydraulic deflector for basically the pitch of your snow or your elevation. So in this case, it's just 4 hoses. We might have 6 if we had a hydraulic deflector. So what we're going to do here, we're going to disconnect these. These function similar like an air compressor hose. Those will lose a couple drops of oil. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a rag. I'll just put it right down here to catch some of that. But it is normal to lose a couple drops. When you disconnect these, you can place this dust cap in here. Keep dust out. We recommend that because I'm just going to be putting this back on in just a few minutes. I'm not going to bother. These are color coded as well. So this red is just a dust cap, but you can see we've got a blue ring here and a blue ring on this hose. So that makes it easy for connecting and disconnecting. I'll disconnect all of these. I'm going to take all these hoses. I'm just going to drape them over the front of the snowblower. So at this point, we've got the snowblower completely disconnected from the tractor. It's always good to double check, make sure we've got clearance on everything. Make sure we've got clearance down to the back of the tractor. Make sure that PTO shaft didn't get forgotten. So it is disconnected and laying there. We're good to drive the tractor away. Okay, we're back in the cab of the tractor. So we're going to go ahead and fire it up and back it away from the snowblower. We're going to back away nice and slow, just in case we forgot something, or in case, you know, there's something that didn't quite settle as far as we thought it did out of the way. We just want to make sure that we don't break anything as we're backing away. So there we are again. You can see from the very tail end, we've got the drawbar and the pin that holds it in. We've got the subframe of the tractor, the PTO shaft. You can see that it has this slip joint here, which allows it to flex with the tractor during use. That is something you want to lubricate, let this move. We've got bearings in here and here that carry the shaft. Those are also something you want to lubricate regularly with the grease. It comes into this shaft and into the gearbox. The manual will go over maintenance intervals and everything like that, so I'm not going to touch that here. But there is the assembly. This is, in this particular case, it's an L4455 subframe hitch attached to an L4469 snowblower. This is going to be the same for multiple models of blower. This hitch is used all the way from the 35 horsepower to the 60 horsepower tractor. So now the process of reconnecting, you can see right here is this tube which receives those 2 main front pins that we pulled out right here. And those pins pass through the bumper right here. So our goal when we pull the tractor onto this hitch is to be as centered as we possibly can be, side to side, right down the center of the tractor. And then we want to stop with that bumper aligning its pinholes directly over this tube. So that's a little bit difficult to do. Sometimes it takes a couple shots, but we'll fire up the tractor We're going to pull it back forward over this hitch until we're lined up vertically with that tube. You can see this tube is pretty well vertically aligned with these pin slots. So as long as we're close here, you can see that this is tapered and this is tapered. So as long as we're close, it will kind of funnel this frame in side to side. Same with these sides. We've got these saddles that are built in. So as this tube raises, it will naturally kind of center itself in here. It's not always perfect, but that does help. You don't have to have perfect alignment to get those pins in. Going to the back of the tractor, one thing I want to point out, while this frame is down low and more visible, you can see there's those two pins in the frame. And that one is above and below and one is ahead of the other. So what's happening is we put this drawbar on very first and we slide it in. As we raise the frame, those pins are actually binding on that drawbar and locking it in place. So that's why it's the first mechanical connection to the blower when we're putting it on, and the last one we undo after we undo all of those pins coming off. Now that we have the tractor recentered over the frame, we're ready to reconnect the hydraulic lines. So I've pulled them back off the blower, laid them across the axle here. Again, they're color coded, so we can just go back in the way they were. So we're gonna just chase each one of these individually, pull that collar back, slide it on, let it connect. There we go. So our hydraulic hoses are connected, and now we will go through and reroute these through these spring coils, and I won't show you that because it's going to take a minute. Okay, so we have the tractor centered over the frame, and we have our hydraulic hoses all reconnected and routed through these coils so they'll be away from the tire. One area where you always want to pay attention is right here. These hoses, you don't want to let any of them drift in between here, because when you go to raise that snowblower up into this frame, it'll just cut that hose right there. So always want to make sure these are tucked out of the way safely. We're good to go there. We're going to go to the back of the tractor. And you can see that I didn't pull onto the tractor quite centered. You can see that the snowblower frame is about 2 inches to the right of the tractor. So now that we have the hydraulics up, we can start the tractor. We can use the hydraulics to manipulate the frame into the position that we need to pin it on. So we're going to fire it up. Now, if we hold back on the loader joystick, we're going to be raising the snowblower off of the ground, which is actually going to raise this frame back up to the tractor. Now we should be close. We're going to go back and check. It looks like it did align pretty well side to side. So now is when we're going to try putting this drawbar in. We're going to have to check our alignment. That's going to slide in. See, it's going to direct in. Now you can see we're not quite right. The frame is hitting the transmission right there. So we're going to climb back in the tractor, and I'm going to pull it forward about 1 inch, maybe a little bit less. It doesn't need to be very much. Now we'll see if we're clear. We're going to try raising that up just a little bit more. You can see that pin slides almost in. We're just going to push it the final bit. It's going to clunk into place. I'm going to line up that hole. Drop our pin in. Maybe. So now our frame is hanging at the tail end. It is hanging on that drawbar now. You can see that we're aligned pretty well forward and backward here. So I'm going to use that loader control. I'm going to push down on the snowblower. It's going to raise the whole frame assembly into the tractor. If everything lines up well, we're going to watch those hoses again. It's going to raise up. it's going to settle right into place. You can see how it settled right here, right here. So we're going to raise it up just a little bit more. I'm going to shut the tractor off. Now you can see we've suspended that axle again. All the weight's on the frame. So now we need to go and we need to replace these front main pins. We'll pull these hoses out of the way, slide that in. Put in the retainer pin, lock it in place. We're going to do the same with this smaller pin that's down in the middle of the tractor. Slide it in. On this one, it's important or helpful to note that this pinhole is quite a ways down the pin. And the pin doesn't actually bottom out all the way, so it goes in most of the way. And might have to wiggle that around. Everything's a little more difficult one-handed. There we go. So now both pins on the right side of the tractor are in place. We'll go over to the left side. Grab our main pin, slide it into the front. And our middle pin. And this is the one that was a little tight coming out, so it makes sense it's a little tight going back in. You might be able to wiggle it. What I'm going to do, we have all the other 3 pins in, so now I'm going to, with the tractor off, I'm just going to kind of relax everything again. And we're going to see if this will slide in now. Not quite. Let's relax that just a little bit more. There we go. Now this pin's going to slide into place right about there. Put our retainer in. Depending on how well assembled these are and what temperature it is, all these frames flex and have a little bit of movement in them. So it's pretty good odds that one of these pins isn't going to slide in just perfectly. And you'll have to play a little bit with the hydraulic pressure just to get everything kind of into alignment. Again, that's where it's kind of helpful to have 2 people. Somebody can follow the pin and somebody can run the controls. The frame back in place, we've got our front pins in and our middle pins in with their retainers. Our drawbar is back in. That was the first thing we did. Everything's pinned in place. So structurally, the snowblower is now reattached to the tractor. Hydraulically, it's reattached. The only thing left, which is I saved for the last, is the PTO shaft. We're going to lay down here. Tight, but you usually can reach up here again. It's just laying there. So we're going to grab that shaft. Apologize, the lighting is not great. We can see our PTO shaft here. We're going to rotate this to get those splines to engage. I'll pull that collar back. This is one where it's very important to make sure that that seat's in place, because you don't want that coming undone while you're blowing snow. So at this point, the blower is in place, the hydraulic lines are in place, the PTO shaft is in place, everything is re-engaged. So we are good to go. Okay, so we've got the blower reinstalled on the tractor. We took it off, we put it back on. It's really a pretty simple process. Once you get the order of operations down in your mind, it's pretty simple. Probably 2 things that I want to make a comment on that are just helpful reminders when using these snow blowers. One, when you take your loader off, if you're using a loader on this tractor during the summer and putting a snow blower on in the fall, if you take your loader off in the fall when it's cold, say 45 degrees, you're getting ready for the snow. In the spring, you come back and you're ready to do yard projects again and you're up to 75, 80 degrees. You're ready to hook that snowblower on. A lot of times on those hydraulic hoses, because of the temperature has increased since you took it off, the hydraulic oil is expanded and pressurized in that hydraulic system on your loader. So you can't get those hoses to reconnect. So that's something to think about. You always want to make sure you shut the tractor off and neutralize the valve in the tractor. And then if those hoses are under pressure because of the temperature's increased, you may need to take a wrench and loosen a fitting and bleed a little bit of oil out to let that pressure off so that you can reconnect them. That's a helpful tip come springtime. Another helpful thing to know is on the chute rotation for these snow blowers, it uses a hydraulic orbital motor to rotate that chute left and right. And for reasons I don't quite understand, it behaves a little bit differently than a hydraulic cylinder. On your loader control or your joystick in the cab, when you go to rotate your chute to the left, you'll push the loader a little bit to the left and it's going to rotate. When you go to the right, it's going to act like it's dead and it's not going to want to rotate to the right. Nothing's going to happen. There's kind of a dead zone in that joystick and you're going to want to push it past that. It's going to hit a wall and just push it extra hard to the right and it's going to go past that. That D10 is kind of built into the system. I don't understand exactly why they do that. Perhaps someday I'll find out, but that's something to know. When you go to rotate your chute, if it rotates left and not right, just push harder on the joystick to the right. There's a chance that maybe one of your hydraulic hoses didn't get tightened up, but if you're confident that those are all tight, just push harder on that joystick and it'll go to the right. So these blowers have been awesome for us. We have a lot of customers that really love them. They've been really reliable. They're very convenient. It's a comfortable tractor to be in the winter when it's cold. And you can drive forward and blow snow. They're very powerful. They do a great job. So I hope this video was helpful at least a little bit. And check us out at Rocky Mountain Machinery. We're here in Craig, Colorado. If you have any questions, shoot us a call.